Well, welcome back, everyone, to the latest episode of the Unclassified Podcast. I'm America's Mayor, Ben Wheeler, joined as always with teen heartthrob Preston Stewart. We have a lot to talk about today. We have Europe, we have Greenland, we have Iran. Lord knows
you can't keep
else.
a straight face, and I don't know why.
I can't keep a straight face because right as we're counting down people, I made coffee this morning. And it smelled like chili from as I was approaching it. And it's like the most disgusting smell. It tastes normal. It doesn't taste like chili.
Is it the mug?
Is it a bug?
No, the mug. Is it the mug?
No. It's not a mug. No, it's not the mug. It was 100% the coffee coming out of the coffee pot. But as I poured it, it smelled less like chili. And I don't know. It was so disgusting. But now it tastes, let's see. Doesn't taste like chili. It tastes like coffee.
You're still drinking it, though? I don't know if I'd be able to do that. Move on to something else at that point.
It doesn't smell like chili right now. But when it was brewing, I was like, what, am I making chili or something? It was disgusting. Anyways, folks, so that's what's going on with me. Preston, are you going to be hit by the snowstorm?
Yeah. So right now, it's supposed to be a mix of snow, like for the next couple hours, and then transitions into a beautiful ice rain mixture for the rest of the day. So we're like right on this border when you look at the radar, where like a few miles south, it's probably just going to be ice and slush and nastiness. Wintry mix, I think, is the professional term. And north of us, they should be getting snow. So we'll see. This has been weird, man. And I know that it's a big storm, so a lot of people are getting this, and it's out of the normal, but like a week ago, it sounded like we were going to get like 7 inches of snow, which is a ton for Tennessee. And then it changed. It would be like 15 inches, which is a staggering amount. It's like more snow than we've had in the past like 5 years combined. It went up to, I think the highest number I saw was 21 inches.
Is it still going to snow for you?
Maybe. The volume has decreased and it's kind of shifted into more wintry mix. But bro, 21 inches of snow?
That's 3 feet.
I mean, well, not quite, but I gotcha. It's like,
oh, you're. Yeah, my bad. I was thinking football terms
chili.
there.
Yeah, still thinking about that chili coffee.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, I don't know. It's supposed to happen here in the next couple hours. They've kind of closed a bunch of stuff in Tennessee. What we do, like, we're in a part of the country that probably gets snow maybe once a year. Definitely some sort of storm every couple years. And we just, that's not enough to like invest in snow clearing equipment and all that stuff. So it pretty well shuts the place down for a period of time. So they've already started canceling a bunch of stuff. But we'll see, man. I got my generator. I got a Starlink recently because that seemed like why not? So I'm ready to go. We could be recording this if all the power went, maybe not. But yeah, I'm ready. If we need an emergency episode and Middle Tennessee is shut down, I'm ready to go.
Well, that's certainly reassuring. Yeah, here in Benlana, which is what they're calling Atlanta now because I'm America's mayor. Yeah. So everywhere I go, they put my name in it. And here in Benlana, we were supposed to get like 9 inches of snow, but now we're not getting 9 inches anymore. And it seems like it might be freezing rain, but like the window for it's rapidly closing because it won't drop to under 30 until like 2 to 4 in the morning.
Ooh, nice.
And
nice ice.
That window is rapidly closing as to whether or not we'll get ice and freezing rain. But people down here in the north, as you know, we're accustomed to the cold and the snow and all this ludicrousness. So this is like pretty run of the mill for me. But everyone down here is like freaking out. Like you said, they don't have the infrastructure. Like we're not going to have power. I don't know. So they have kind of spooked me a little bit. I've done nothing for storm preparedness.
Nice.
I don't need to. I'll be fine. It's going to be like, what, a day or two and the power come back on?
You'll be fine. You can rough it through that.
I mean, think about, should we, if my power goes out, we might just have to get a replacement me. I don't know if I'll survive.
I mean, we can give it a day or two, but yeah, we'll definitely start looking at.
I sat here and I thought, what am I supposed to do if my power goes out? What did they used to do? And I was like, well, I guess I could read a book, which is fine. I read books, but not like forced,
That'd be forced.
That would be
Nature
forced.
forcing you.
And then what do you do? But then you also like can't go outside. I was gonna say go outside and play, but I'm not 11 years old anymore. So you could go outside, but the roads are all ice. So good luck. So I don't know. It's gonna be a trying time, but I'm actually on the team of nothing ever happens. So yes,
just to be safe, you should make a batch of chili in your coffee pot and have it available. If you can't cook, you have it ready to go.
Then it's really gonna smell like chili in here. Yeah. Oh my god! It doesn't even smell like chili in my apartment. My apartment smells lovely. It smells like these Christmas candles I'm trying to burn through because I'm a big sucker for, do you go to Bed Bath and Body Works?
No.
Okay, so I like Bed Bath and Body Works, and I like to get all the Christmas candles because as we've gone over, I like Christmas. You not so much. So my place smells like it smells like Merry Cookie. It smells like sugar snickerdoodle. It smells like midnight snow, balsamic rain. I mean, it smells like all kinds of things in here. So, balsamic rain. That'd be a little gross. But yeah, so that's what it smells like in here. So that's why I was quite disturbed to smell chili coming out of my coffee pot. But it seems to have gone away. This coffee is, I'm not going to tell you it tastes good compared to most weeks, but it's all right.
All right, that's enough. That a balsamic rain and saying I don't like Christmas. That's enough. We're shifting over to Iceland. Let's talk about Iceland.
But you're not a real. Okay, we're gonna get into the Europe, but you're not a real Christmas lover, though, right?
What are you talking about? Where's this coming from? I feel ambushed.
So I'm not. I don't mean to attack, but would you say in terms of like top 100 Christmas lovers that you're up there?
I haven't seen the 26 rankings. I don't know. It's hard to.
So all I'm saying is, I don't know. Anyways, well, I didn't mean to ambush you with allegations of being the Grinch, but we do have to talk about Europe and Canada. And so for those of you who watched our emergency episode, thank you to everyone who did. Also, thank you to our now 35 members. Dude, if we get enough people, we could march on the Capitol. Okay,
is that what we're okay?
That's what we're doing. The Free American Army, led by us.
Oh, and I'm going to sidetrack you before you go on. Merch. Yeah. Megan's working on some back end stuff. Right now, and once we get that figured out, we're start working on some ridiculous designs for the show.
I would love nothing.
Friend of the pod and Doug the Pug, like lock him up. All sorts of.
Dude, get that dog out of here. Get him out of here.
That'd be fun,
dude. I would love nothing more. So, well, okay, guys. If you have any merch ideas, please feel free to put them in the comments. So Europe, as you know, Trump went over to Davos, and it went well, and there were no issues, and everyone loved him there. And at least that's what you hear, depending on what news source you're listening to. But no, he goes over to Davos. He says, we need Greenland, yada, yada, yada. He rules out military force, right, which was, I think, a sigh of relief for everybody, but also a lot of people just don't believe him. So he ruled that out. And then we get to, he has this meeting with Mark Rutte, who is both a friend of the pod or enemy of the pod, depending on my mood any given day. And he kind of goes into a meeting with the Don, and Trump comes out saying, we have a deal. Everything's fine on Greenland. It's all good. Now, we don't know what the deal is. Well, we do know what the deal is. The deal was famously signed in 1951 by, I believe, Harry Truman, right? And it is the Greenland Defense Agreement between Denmark and the United States. And everything that comes out about this deal is almost verbatim what we've been laid out here. Would you say that's correct, Preston?
I'd actually take a step further back than that. And I'm going to stick with we don't have any idea what it is. Denmark and Greenland haven't chimed in, and apparently we're not a part of that conversation to put together the framework for a deal. So we have a deal. The framework for a deal is in the works for future planning is probably the way to put it.
What was that thing he said during the debates? He has concept of a plan.
Yeah. We're not even there yet. Because the other party here, like we can't negotiate over Greenland with NATO. Like we can try. They can sign whatever they want. It's not going to work. Like we need Denmark and Greenland to chime in. And the last I've seen is they are saying the same things they did over the course of the last week and 2 weeks. Their sovereignty will not be infringed, and they're happy to work together on mutual defense and all. It's the same stuff. So this was frustrating, man. I'm gonna be honest. Like, if you think that it was just a negotiating tactic, then I'm here to say it was a bad one. It was a bad negotiating tactic because I don't know what is going to happen in Greenland. Like, what is the scenario that comes out of Greenland that makes it worth burning these bridges left, right, and center? One of the big takeaways for me from Davos was all this cold water thrown on the idea of, will NATO actually work? Will NATO stand with the United States? Will the United States stand with NATO? And like, that's all we have, man, in terms of that alliance. If somebody thinks the alliance isn't going to work, then it's nothing. Like the CSTO over in Russia, nobody's worried that, like, if we piss off Russia, everyone might come to their defense, because we know that's a garbage agreement. It's just a piece of paper that nobody actually adheres to. So when we have President Trump and other leaders from across the alliance openly questioning whether or not it still holds, like, I don't want to be dramatic to say like that's the end of NATO, but like that type of thing can genuinely end the alliance. It'll still be there in name, but it won't actually matter. And like, so what are we getting out of that? I guess is the other side. If we're going to push it to that point, what are we getting? Maybe the same thing that we had since 1951.
So I fully agree with you. I kind of thought that they, based on everything that the New York Times was getting out of like what they're being told from the administration and the New York Post, I was under the impression that they were going the route of deconstructing the 1951 treaty and explaining it at like a very bare bones level, right? Because what the New York Times reports is that the deal, as you say, whether or not there's a deal or not, or a framework of a deal, or concepts of a plan to get a framework to make a deal, is they said that the United States would get sovereignty over land that they could build military bases on. That's kind of how most military bases work, right? So
I don't know how the legal specifications, but like people from Denmark cannot just walk into our military bases around the world. Like you can't just walk in. It is guarded by U.S. military personnel. You can't. I mean, maybe the country can. Maybe it's like conditional sovereignty, right? Like Germany has the ability to say get out. South Korea has the ability to say get out, and they could tell us we don't have that anymore. But it's not like they just walk onto those bases. So I don't know. Look, there's a real chance what my gut says on this is that this is going to be very similar to NAFTA, where they're going to essentially take it apart and replace it with the same thing, if not very, 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 very similar. And there will be a different name on it. And then Trump will that'll be a campaign thing, right? We renegotiated this important Arctic security treaty when it's the same thing, but technically they signed a new one. I feel like that's probably in the cards.
Yeah, so I think you're 100% right. And what I just meant by like the deconstructing it is like, in order to make this a domestic win, they're just explaining it at a bare bones level, right? But for anyone who knows what's going on, 100% sees the forest for the trees there, right? Now, on the NATO front, he did manage to, later that day, offend the entire alliance by saying that NATO troops, perhaps they weren't Afghanistan, but they stayed a little far back from the front lines. What do you think of that, Preston? You made a very good Instagram video. I liked it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It was stupid. It's not right. It's factually inaccurate, and I wish he hadn't said that. I don't know where that's coming from. It's just not true. I mean, during his speech at Davos, again, some of this stuff, it's hard to, like, what do you do when you keep hearing things that are inaccurate? Like, what's the approach there? And there's a part of me, Megan and I were talking about this yesterday, like there's this social contract where if you lie, you're caught lying, knowingly lying, you should lose some credibility. And people go, wow, I don't know if I can trust Ben anymore because he said something that was so patently false. And then when you dig, I'm sorry to use you as the example here, but like me, if I lie and then dig in and push that lie further and refuse to walk it back, like there should be repercussions for that, especially for our elected leaders. And we're just not there. It's weird. And I don't know what to do with that. But during his speech at Davos, President Trump regularly or repeatedly talked about how NATO has never been there for us and NATO has never done anything for us. And look, you can make arguments all day long about the contribution levels and military basing and all of that stuff, all you want. But a factual item is that the only time Article 5 has ever been invoked is following 9/11, and our NATO allies were there for us in Afghanistan. You can argue that, I don't know, I think they did a great job. I don't know. I fought alongside our NATO allies. They were there on the front line despite the other comments from the president. But like, why? What value do we have in that? It's so patently false. And then the doubling down of maybe they were there, but they stayed a ways back. Like, no, they didn't. Like, it's a war zone, so a lot of people do stay back, including people in our military. I mean, we had a lot of folks that deployed to war zones, but stayed inside of like the Baghdad Green Zone, for instance, or stayed inside of Kabul. And like, you know, there were still attacks. People still died in those areas. I don't want to downplay that at all, but technically, I guess that's a little bit back from the front. It's still in an active war zone, for Christ's sake. But like, no, man, you kidding me? It's so, again, like, what do we get out of that? I guess is a couple internet points for what might not even be real people, and instead piss off our allies. Like, there's no value in this. And I got pissed off about this with Besant the other day too, where he said Denmark is nothing. What are we doing, man? Like, what benefit does that serve the United States? There's nothing. There's no near, medium, or long-term benefit to the United States to do that. If you don't think that an ally of ours is doing what they should, or they're not meeting their obligations, or even that they don't align with our interests anymore, just move on. Like, fine. Like, act in your own self-interest. I think the United States should act in our own self-interest. You can just move on. It doesn't do any good to degrade some of these allies as we're doing that. If the goal is full American isolation, we can just do that. I think it's the wrong move. I hope we don't go that direction. But why along the way are we going out of our way to unnecessarily trash the allies that, again, fought and died with us in Afghanistan? It's ridiculous, man. It's embarrassing.
No, you're absolutely right. The Brits were in Helmand province where all the heaviest fighting was, right? So
yeah, they ran Helmand for a good portion of the time. In 2010, we were pushing into a pretty heavy fight in Kandahar called Operation Dragon Strike. And the guys that led the way, we couldn't go down the main roads because there were too many IEDs. Like, it was just a matter of, you're going to go 1 kilometer and hit 27 IEDs, so it's going to take forever. So we had to create our own road. And when I say we, it was the British Royal Engineers. So me and my guys, Dog Company 2502 Infantry, we put on our packs, got ready to walk out the gate, and in front of us were British troops in these massive backhoe-type tractor things, and they literally created a road in the middle of a minefield, hit mines, hit IEDs, under direct fire from the Taliban, so my guys and I could advance on the objective. Like, it doesn't get more tip of the spear than that, right? Like, they were literally in front of the lead element, taking fire so we wouldn't get hit. But yeah, not on the front lines. No, they were there. Start to finish.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, but what Trump has managed to do now, though, with his comments in Europe with Greenland and his pressing of Greenland and the tariffs, and then these comments about the troops, not being on the front lines, is that he has now created a situation that is a big problem for him. I would say any other American president, I would not say it's that big of an issue, because you're the American president and you can just go whatever. But it is an issue for him. And that is, he has created a situation in Europe where all these leaders have direct incentive to tee off on him as hard as they possibly can. You saw it with Keir Starmer. You saw it with Emmanuel Macron. You saw it with Merz, who is still pulling his punches. You're seeing this continent-wide. You saw it in Poland, who is the most pro-American country in all of Europe, teeing off several times. So now we have European leaders directly insulting Donald Trump. Any other normal person would just go, well, I guess I do deserve what I got there, right? Maybe you pick up the phone, you apologize, or walk back your comments or whatever. But that's not what's happening. In fact, he's just doubling down on the attack, which is only going to make the situation even worse, because Trump does not know how to de-escalate, right? So, and it's weird to me that he does take offense when the European leaders offend him, because domestically, it's all like the WWE to him, right? Like, he likes Zoran Mondani. He doesn't have an issue of Mondani calling him a fascist, right? He doesn't have an issue of Gavin Newsom attacking him. In fact, he met with Gavin Newsom in Davos, and he talked to him, for my understanding, it was quite a bit. So to him, it's all, WWE stateside. But these leaders abroad, I mean, he has a meltdown if anyone even looks at him in the wrong way. So that is creating an unstable situation. But perhaps the most unstable situation of them all is coming out of Canada. Did you get a chance to watch Mark Carney's speech, Prime Minister of Canada?
I went back and watched it, but real quick, if I could add something to the Europe take there. What's frustrating here is that you see the comments online. Again, it's hard to tell how much of this is genuine, which it's actual people, especially over on the cesspool that is Twitter. But the hatred for Europe has caught me off guard. Again, we don't have to be best friends with everyone. We can move on. Think of it like a normal relationship. You just, this relationship worked. We were friends for a little while, and then our interests changed and we moved on. You don't have to burn that bridge to move on to the next one. Maybe for a lot of folks, they view that Europe should not necessarily be our closest ally anymore. Like, again, I disagree with that. I think we have a ton in common there. We share a lot of mutual interests, but it is staggering. I cannot understand the value in trying to make them an enemy. Like, again, we can maybe the strategic decision is that we're going to be buddy-buddy with China, or we're going to go it alone, whatever it might be. Where is the benefit to turning a continent against us? And I can't piece that together. It feels just very vengeful. And part of the concern here is it feels like this is like a very populist thing, right? It's this, I've been individually wronged, so I'm going to get him back. And I think we see that in American politics right now, where it's more about policies are just as much about who is this going to hurt. I want to get someone back, right? Own the libs or stomp MAGA or whatever it is. And, when you're dealing with other governments, I feel like there's generally rationality there, where you work with people where interests don't necessarily, or where core values don't align because interests align, let's say. And we've seen that from the U.S. countless times throughout our history. But when you're talking about the population, I feel like that can be more radicalized. And I think we're seeing that in the United States right now, where there's a segment of the U.S. population that hates Europe so much, they're ready to write them off entirely and say, we're just done with you, period. We're starting to put that back in their court, where I think some of these statements from President Trump are risking, not to overuse the term here, but radicalizing some of those populations against the United States. So even when a new government comes in here and a new government comes in France and Germany and England and elsewhere, the population, very well, enough of that population might have the mindset of, screw the United States, let's get them back. And again, I just bring it back to why? Like, what are we doing here?
Well, their whole, like the explicit point of their project they have now, right, with Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance, is to have a far right in Europe that aligns itself with the United States. But nobody is a greater promoter of global liberalism than Donald Trump.
Dude, we pissed off a bunch of the far right parties. Trump did in the last few days.
Well, yeah. Well, so now they're like, if you look at the polls coming out, Denmark's elections, the left in Denmark is now surging once again. And we saw the same thing with Canada earlier this year, where it looked like Pierre Poilievre was set to be the next prime minister of Canada. And now you have Mark Carney, right? He is just kind of completely bumps him. Nigel Farage, over leading Reform over in the UK, is cooked. Now, I do not underestimate Starmer's ability to mess up this crisis and capitalize on it, but Farage is cooked. I mean, he's not coming out strong enough. You're seeing a lot of criticism from everyone there. I think he's going to suffer greatly. So yeah, these parties trying to align themselves with the United States and Trump are now finding themselves in a position of they're needing to condemn him but nobody believes the condemnations, is strong enough. So he is going to bring in the 2010s level of liberalism into Europe. So shout out to that. But I mean, if you're the AFD right now, you got to be punching the air. But anyways, on Canada though, up north, Mark Carney had this speech, and he basically declares that he doesn't say that American hegemony is dead, but he kind of does, right?
He never called out the United States explicitly, but if you listen to it, he is talking about the United States. Yeah.
Yeah. He says the rules-based international order was at some level fake, right? Which is true, but he also emphasizes that a lot of it is also believing, and that it is something we should all strive for, right? So he kind of lays out this pretty complicated speech, and Donald Trump was not a fan of it. I think he would have had a stronger position if he could understand what Mark Carney was saying. But even the little bit that he did understand, he didn't like. And so he threatens Canada in his Davos speech. He says, Carney, remember that Canada lives because of America, which is a not so subtle, veiled threat, right? And then he has been railing on him. He de-invited Canada from his board of peace. So they no longer have the privilege of paying $1 billion into this board of peace that Donald Trump is the emperor of forever. So I really do feel bad for all our Canadian listeners. I don't know how they will do going forward. And then today he went off on Carney again, and he says, if Governor Carney thinks, this is the first time he's called him governor since Trudeau left. But he says, if Governor Carney thinks he's going to make Canada a drop-off port for China to send goods and products into the United States, he is sorely mistaken. China will eat Canada alive, completely devour it, including the destruction of their businesses, social fabric, and general way of life. If Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with a 100% tariff against all Canadian goods and products coming into the USA. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So there's a core part of MAGA, you're right, does hate Europe, but also just doesn't understand how the world actually works. And that is, Donald Trump is right to a certain extent that Canada does exist at the express consent of the United States. If the United States went full out evil, and perhaps we're getting there, it could take Canada, right? And it would be rough. There'd be an insurgency. We can get into all that, but it would be brutal, right? Now, because that threat is so real, and Donald Trump is saying it out loud, Canada now has express reason to align itself or to get closer with China and to get closer with Europe and to get closer with other entities in the world to secure itself against the American threat. I don't understand why this is so hard to comprehend, and this is also why prior to Donald Trump, no American president since Madison, am I correct in that? Since Madison has gone the way to invade Canada or threatened to invade Canada. So it's ludicrous. Like, of course, Canada's going to do this. And I say, I support them in their endeavor of doing this because I think that is a rational thing for them to do. Is a rational thing for a proud member of the free world to do is to try to build defenses against an aggressive rogue nation. What do you think?
I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. I saw this presented as like Canada spiting themselves to stick it to Trump, but like we're not the only option with anything in the world. I think in a lot of cases we're the best option in terms of a partner. But no matter how loud we yell that, there is another side of that party that gets to determine, is it in my best interest to partner with the United States? And for different countries around the world, they value different things. It could be proximity. It could be shared language, shared culture. It could be economic value, military protection, whatever it might be. But we're not the only option. There are other options. Somebody can choose to buy Russian air defense assets, and they'll have them. I think that's a shitty move. I think that's not good. But they could do that. We are, and I think Canada is showing that we are not the only option, and they are choosing that they're just going to look elsewhere. And to your point, we'll see if it ends up being the right move. I don't know if it's best for Canada long term. I understand it. It's like an abusive relationship to a degree. Somebody keeps threatening you, you move on. And it seems like that's what he did. And then instead of trying to win him back, we threatened again. Like, it seems very, again, I think there's an element in our government right now, and maybe within the population, that's overplayed our hand, thinking that we are the only show in town. When, again, I think in a lot of cases, if not all cases, we're the best option, but that doesn't mean only. And if we try to force people into situations that they don't want to, for any number of reasons, don't want to be a part of, they're going to look elsewhere. And I think we're underestimating how important the Canada move is. It's going to be easier for our European allies to make that shift to Canada, to China than Canada. The proximity here is pretty shocking. And yeah, should not be unexpected. We pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, hoping that they would just give in, and they just chose to go elsewhere. That was one of the options on the table.
And it's 100% going to come back to kill us, I think. Because
I hate it. I hate it, man.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to be our closest. Are you kidding me? You ever talk to Canadians? They're great. What are we doing here?
Well, the Canadians are great. And every Canadian I've met, I've liked. So, I mean, there's that, right? And I just think the issue is there will be a day in which this guy's gone, right? Whether that is natural causes or a jail cell, I don't know. But we are going to have to think about what happens the day after, right? And how we rebuild these relationships with Canada, with Europe. And I don't know how you restore faith, because I think these nations have completely lost faith, not just in the American electorate, but also in the American system of government. You always hear them say, well, the United States has checks and balances. I guess. Not really working, though. And we're going to have to figure out how that works. And perhaps that is locking up everybody who is involved in this. I don't know. But we are going to have to figure out a way to get people to come back in. Because I think it's going to be very hard. If you assume whoever it is, whether it's Josh Shapiro or Gavin Newsom or Preston Stewart as president 2028, you're going to have to figure out how you convince people that, no, in 4 years, everything's not going to change again, right? I don't know how you do that. I truly don't know how you do that, given that it's now happened twice.
Well, more than twice. Maybe, was it the Bush to Obama change in 2008? There's been,
but that wasn't as radical of a change, though.
No, but it's gotten more radical as we've gone. And in fact, when the Iranian nuclear strikes were kind of in the midst, and we were going to talk with them or we weren't, one of the criticisms, one of the frustrations from Iran, and I get it, is they said, what the hell do you want us to do? Like, every 4 years, you completely change your stance. So essentially they said, why would we make 20-year decisions based off your 4-year cycle? Are we allowed to have a nuclear program or not? Do we have sanctions or do we not? And the Iranian regime's awful. All right. And I'm glad we carried out the nuclear strikes, but they have a valid point where they dealt with multiple different iterations of what we permitted them to do or not to do between Obama, Trump, Biden, and then Trump. So that has been happening. And I'm wondering if it goes back a term before that. Maybe it was Trump 1. I have a feeling with certain policies, it probably was the case with when Obama came in. I imagine there are some directions where we just switched up. But either way, it's gotten worse and worse to where now you're right. The threat is military. Again, I don't think military force was genuinely on the table for Greenland or Iceland, whichever one we're calling it now, and Canada.
Do you see their defense for the Iceland remark?
I don't know. I saw people try to defend it, and it's the video's right here.
They're insisting that he said it with a comma between, or no, if a space between ice and land. Okay, because he said it's a piece of ice. So Caroline Levitt says he didn't say Iceland. He said Iceland. I if you, it's like something out of Veep, dude. I go on. Oh, sorry.
Jesus Christ. These are getting ridiculous when it's, you know, I always thought, I've said this before, but I always thought like with more access to information, people wouldn't be able to lie as much. But for Christ's sake, we've got a video of the man saying one thing. He did it the next day. I'm getting so frustrated today. He did it the next day. On the stage, he said, we have to have Greenland. We have to have that territory. The next day, Maria Bartiromo, or however you say her name on Fox News, said, how does this deal track with the fact that yesterday you said we need all of Greenland? And he said, I never said that. It's like less than 24 hours ago, you said those exact words. Like, it feels hard to function, if that makes sense. Like, if you can just say anything and then deny it, and it's on camera, and enough people will be like, he didn't say it.
I am genuinely surprised that we have not gotten this yet. And they call it Greenland, but it's all made of ice, and they call Iceland, and it's made of green. The names are flipped, and
he just renames them. He just changes the map again.
He changes them, but like also like isn't, I know this isn't true. It's like an urban legend, but isn't it like Leif Erikson or some guy Viking was like, oh, we'll trick the people and we'll name the land of ice to Greenland, and we'll name Iceland that has green Iceland. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I just think of the Mighty Ducks. Is the only thing that comes up. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, he might be the only person in history to fall for that outside of like a second grader. So, shout out to him.
We're gonna shift over to talk Iran and talk Ukraine here in a second. But I just want to say that how frustrating this is. Like, this is a nothing. Okay, this is all self-inflicted pain and self-inflicted drama. Like, are you kidding me? And I hate it. I'm on the personal side of my content. I'm trying to figure out how to thread this needle, because like, it's one thing when he just says stuff and you can just kind of pass it off and be like, I'm just not gonna, the first few months of his administration, it was almost like a content free for all, right? He was saying something crazy so often, you'd be like, wow, every one of those deserves a video and deserves some analysis. But we're so far past that, and it just wastes time. It wastes my time. It wastes your time. It wastes the viewers' time that we talk about these things that end up being nothing. What's frustrating is there's a after effect here with our European allies that has a very real impact on U.S. national security. I think the Greenland thing was nothing. I think it came and went with nothing. And it's just going to suck for a while into the future. I don't know exactly the right way to approach how that all plays out. But yeah, what do you got, man?
Well, I think the good news is we are past the Greenland episode for at least a few months, because he did give it the kiss of death.
2 weeks.
And he said, we're going to be working it out in 2 weeks. And if you listen to the show long enough, in fact, if you maybe you're a first time listener, but you haven't lived under a rock, 2 weeks is the kiss of death. Once you get hit with, once he says 2 weeks, it's over, So, but before we go to Iran, what do you know about this? So, as you know, the Cuban soldiers on the ground, or the Venezuelan soldiers on the ground during the raid, reported that like they got their brain, there's something that's going on with their brains, and they bled through their nose and their ears or whatever. Now Trump has told the New York Post, I don't know if this is as of this morning or what, but he told them that the U.S. has a secret weapon called the discombobulator that disabled Venezuelan defenses, and he says that it makes their heads ring, and it also it makes the enemy troops' heads ring, and it also turns off all their defenses. Do you know anything about this, or did they just tell him it's a discombobulator and he was like, yeah, okay?
Yeah, I wouldn't report that too confidently quite yet. The original source of that story was a random user on Twitter that was unsourced. I hate to shock you with this, but somebody said a random thing without any evidence and without any sources on the ground, and that slowly got picked up by bigger and bigger creators, and now has kind of had this circular story that may have some magic death ray. Maybe. I mean, I don't know what type of secret weapons we have, but That one specifically, if it's what I'm thinking of, originated unsourced, and then it got repeatedly cited enough to where like now you can find it in a number of different outlets that all point back to that same unverified source. So I'd be
awesome. That it just rules that like you can just lie and then it's like fact if you
lie enough. If enough people also say you're lie, and look, to be fair, I'm not saying that has to be a lie. I've not seen it verified by anyone authentic. It's been repeated by a lot of big accounts, but that's of course very different than independent verification of any source, and which I feel like we probably need for a pretty. It's a pretty serious claim.
I've often thought the key to our disinformation environment is to have an official source, an official body that determines what's fact or what's fiction. And then once I think about it further, I go, no, that's a horrible idea. So I don't really know what the solution is to this thing other than if you have to be very smart and tapped in to know what's true or false. And even then you may still ask the president about the discombobulator, and he'll say, yeah, it's real. But anyways, Iran, though, Preston, what's going on here? So, as you know, he said, don't kill protesters that killed protesters. And now we are sending so many assets to the region. And for whatever reason, it's just taking forever for us to do a strike. What's going on here?
The numbers coming out of Iran are shocking. We've had the regime at this point verify thousands. I think the foreign minister referenced 3,000 killed a few days ago, which would make it the deadliest government crackdown in regime history. It's not close. And independent estimates are far north of that. I mean, some on the low side are in the 12 to 14,000 range. The highest one I've seen is 40,000 people killed. For reference, that say it's 12,000, that means that more Iranian civilians were killed by their government in essentially a weekend than the U.S. lost during the global war on terror over 20 years. Yeah, I think you're muted too.
I'm sorry. I was coughing because I got this dry cough I can't get rid of. And so then I muted and I forgot to unmute. So that is crazy.
Yeah. And internet is not on. There's sporadic connections and people who are able to flee the country that are sharing footage. And the footage that we're seeing is what you would expect. Guys driving around in trucks with mounted machine guns, opening fire on crowds. And there's a lot of videos at this point of the crowds running with bullets flying overhead. And you can hear the bullets cracking by their heads. Countless stories now of people going into morgues to try to identify their loved ones. And like, there's not enough room in there. So they're in cold storage outside and they're stacked on top of those containers and they're stacked down the street. Like, again, if you want to go with the lowest number here, we're talking 3,000 to 4,000 people killed in essentially, I mean, it's dragging on, but the peak violence was really 8, 9, 10 January, but it's awful, man. And there's really not the conspiracy folks will say that this is CIA or Mossad led, kind of discounting the regime oppression over the course of the last 47 years. And the fact that, the country is the economy has been spiraling out of control. And there's been crazy crackdowns like this one. Like, how many of your family members need to be shot by the government before you rise up? Like, does that really take the CIA planting some sort of evidence? Anyways, I would actually, frustratingly, I feel like we're not prepared for this. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened, but it doesn't seem like we have assets in place, not even militarily, but like the information space, we're just balking on, apparently. Like, does not appear that we're doing anything to help encourage the protesters, or how about provide aid, some sort of medical aid, or shut down the communication networks of the IRGC, or like we talked about previously, dox the names and locations, addresses of IRGC officials. Like, we're not doing anything at all. And not great, man, for a couple different reasons. I think one that I think is always overplayed is it makes us look weak, like we don't stand by our friends. That's unfortunately been kind of a theme for a while now. So I'm not sure how much lower that bar really goes. I don't know that this is going to be the thing people point to as like why they can't trust the United States. But we have, I mean, President Trump told the protesters to keep going. help is on the way, he said. And yes, there are significant assets moving into the region right now. It might be too late. Like, it's never too late to carry out a strike against the Iranian regime. We can do that whenever we want. But in terms of that impacting how this plays out, I don't know, man. A week ago was on the verge of being too late. It's asking a lot that these people, after 4 weeks of violent crackdowns, that if we do anything at all, they're going to rise up. So I'm losing confidence that this is going to be the thing that actually shakes the regime. I do think we're probably still going to see some U.S. action because President Trump's red lines have been crossed since the day he put them out. In fact, one of his big things recently is saying that Iran has held off on 800 executions thanks to him. The top Iranian prosecutor said that Trump made that up. He said, I don't even know what he's talking about. There's by all indications, executions have continued, arrests have continued, violent crackdowns have continued, suppression has continued. So that's where it sits. And I don't know, I'm losing confidence that there's going to be a positive outcome here.
I fully agree with you. And now I agree to a certain extent that perhaps you will not. I do think this is different, though, than like the Hungarian Revolution that we saw in the 50s, right? Because Eisenhower didn't directly encourage the revolutionaries, the students, but I do think we have a role here, and I think there will be a radicalized generation who both holds the Iranian regime at fault and is also very critically against America, or is quite critical of the United States. In terms of strikes now, I just don't really see what the point is. I think he painted himself into this dumb corner, right? Like, it's like the Syria red line.
Red lines are always a problem, yeah.
Yeah, this is, I once read an Atlantic article like 10 years ago where an anonymous official said they told Barack Obama when it came to Syria, don't draw a red line. You can do whatever you want. You can say we will take action. You can say we won't take action, but don't draw a red line, because once it's crossed, then you have to take action. And once it's crossed, who knows what it looks like, right? But he drew the red line, and it was dumb for him to do, right? And so Trump fell for the red line, and now he looks like an idiot. So now we're going to strike Iran. But for what purpose, right? He says he wants a decisive strike. Is he going to kill the Iranian leadership? That seems pretty insane to me. The United States should not be assassinating world leaders, right? Because, that opens once you legitimize that, it becomes legitimate to do on you, right? By another nation.
I mean,
right? That's why
you make that argument. I understand that argument.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of government officials we could eliminate here that would help the regime fall. Without how many is 86? The guy's going to do it himself here in a few years, anyways.
That is true. It is crazy. He's 86. I can't. Who's to say, dude? We always say these guys are going to die, but then they somehow just live forever. So, who's to say? But it's we are in quite a predicament here. Maybe our friends in Afghanistan, our friends in the Taliban, can help us out here, but they don't seem quite eager to get involved in any kind of way. And everyone else in the Gulf states are trying to save the Iranian regime here. We had a breaking news post as we were doing this that the delay in U.S. action against Iran stems from pressure from the Gulf states and Israel, who feared that their their AD defenses, which is air defense, were inadequate to stop an Iranian counterattack. Diplomats tell Marv these concerns are being addressed with the deployment of Patriot and THAAD systems at the Al Udeid base and other key locations in the region. So, yeah, I don't know. Here's what I am confused about. Did we draw back that much from Operation Hammer? Or is there a different Iranian response coming from their attacks on Israel the year before, during the war, and after Operation Hammer? Are we believing that there's some kind of different thing going on here? Because to me, it seems like there's a lot of caution for what is essentially something that doesn't really warrant caution based on what we have seen. What do you think?
I don't know about the air defense assets. That tends to be relatively hush-hush when we move those around, especially when it gets press when they're moved to a location, less press when it is removed from a location. So I haven't seen much on that. In terms of other assets, I mean, we had a carrier strike group there that's no longer in theater, that's still on its way over now. So, and then I'm not sure about the assets on the ground. But in terms of cargo planes, refuelers, a lot of refuelers have made their way back into Europe specifically, and some back to the United States that were used for that buildup during the 12-day war. So that's a component. I mean, no doubt we have less there now than we used to. Something I think we have to keep in mind here, though, is I think a lot of this we're looking at through the lens of geopolitics and military and so on and so forth. And my gut says that Trump is looking at this through an economics lens. So the most important argument he probably heard against strikes was from our Gulf allies that said this would destabilize the region, it would drive up oil prices, and you might not be able to build your resort in Gaza. And Trump has been at Davos. He talked about how there's peace in the Middle East. Like there were probably, it's not, I don't know what to say. Like in the middle of that speech, right? There's Syrians being killed as that continues to spiral. There's nothing about peace right now in the Middle East. But he is hammering that as one of his key accomplishments. So if you continue military force that leads to medium to long-term destabilization, I can see how he doesn't want to do that. And then if the Saudis are just stepping in going, look, we're manageable right now. We can keep making money. We can keep expanding. We can keep growing. We can keep signing these deals. But if Iran starts slinging drones and missiles into our oil fields, it's a different story. And maybe that's enough for President Trump.
Maybe. Although I don't really understand why the Gulf states would care if the oil price goes up. That benefits them, right?
Yeah. Maybe destabilization is a better way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, who's to really say? But it is ludicrous. So I think we're entering the window, though, where Iranian strikes will happen. I think they're moving too many assets for nothing to happen. But we will see. I just don't really know what the end result is here, other than
face saving, maybe, at this point.
It must be. But even then, I think most people, I don't even think you save face. I think most people go, oh, okay, so we kill our people. He's going to do us like a symbolic strike 2 weeks later. Like, you know. I also just think it's weird. There's like incoherent policy. Like they released the national strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is different from the other one, right?
National security strategy, yeah.
Yeah. So many of these. But this one really doesn't even put any effort into deterring North Korea, Russia, Iran. It doesn't even really focus on China. It's all about the homeland. So it's like we don't really have a strategy here or part of a grand strategy. It's just like whatever he decides is going to be, you know. So,
I mean, that is what it is, right? So may as well have that in writing.
Right. It is. I don't know if there's ever been a president who has bent the country to his whims this much, right? Like it would seem kind of insane to me that Biden would make these strikes or Obama or Bush, right? It just like, it's arbitrary. It just seems so arbitrary, you know? So, we will see. I mean, I'm sure we'll have an emergency episode if we still have power, but we do have questions from the viewers if you would like to get into that here. So this one's from Kilroy. He's a member. We love our members. Shout out to our members. We're trying to build an army so big, right? But he says, how can close relations between China and Europe affect China's support of Russia and European support of Ukraine? Can this cause even bigger fragmentation of European solidarity? Good luck. Drink water.
Why don't you lead us off here? What do you think?
No, I think Europe's support for Ukraine is steadfast. Maybe they can get China to stop supporting Russia. But the issue is that, like, I don't think China really cares. I think they'll continue to support Russia. There was a story in the Financial Times, I'm sure you read it, where they were talking about how Ukraine and Russia are getting drone parts from the same factory and the same companies, and neither group could quite understand why all their visits to the factory were so engineered down to the minute, and that was because for whatever reason they were booking him to come at the same time, and they would have to usher the Russian representatives out as the Ukrainians arrived, or vice versa. And they were just like, what is going on here? Like, this is bizarre. So I don't really think the Chinese would care that much. Perhaps if a favorable trade deal, maybe you could cut into it. But the Chinese have been avoiding sanctions and everything on this forever now, because they do the dual use thing, or they're doing it through shell companies, or, whatever. And maybe I am casting too much doubt on the trustworthiness of the Chinese government, but I just think I don't think it's going to change anyone's thing. I think, if anything, this will lead to a multipolar world where Europe can successfully leverage China against the United States, which is kind of a crazy sentence to say out loud. But I do think that's what you'll see, but I don't necessarily think it has any impact on the war as a whole.
I generally agree. I think China has, this could have gone in either direction, but China has done an effective job of kind of playing both sides against each other and just trying to make this work out well for them. I'm hesitant to say that China wants the war to go on, but Russia is essentially a vassal state of China at this point anyways. They're just making money off of them left, right, and center. They're going to make money off them when the war ends, just in a different way. So, maybe there could be some ways for Europe to try to influence China to stop their support of Russia. It would have to be something that we haven't tried yet, maybe. But as it sits today, I feel like nothing would really change in regards to Russia-Ukraine.
Absolutely. So we have this question from Adam Young. He says, is there any way for Putin to back down from this war while keeping his regime intact?
I think there is. I think it's going to be difficult, and he's going to have to thread that needle. But I think there's a way. There's such a grip on power in Russia that I think there's a way for him to kind of declare victory, if you will, and reset what the conditions for victory are. We've seen enough of that from Russia at this point that I think that would be possible. There's definitely some hardline factions inside of Russia that wouldn't accept it. I don't know how much power they have, how much support they have, comparable to what Putin still controls. The challenge I think Putin will run into, and this might be where China steps in to help them during the reconstruction, is the war economy has actually been relatively beneficial to aspects of Russia, where they've stood up old factories. Think Detroit, right? The auto manufacturers move out and tank manufacturers move in, that kind of stuff. So it's reinvigorated certain aspects of their economy. And there are not jobs that pay. So many of the new Russian recruits, these are not college graduates, right? These are not skilled trade workers that are setting down their hard hats and going into assault teams in the infantry. More and more, Russia is, as every country does, as wars drag on, they are dipping further and further down the social ladder to fill the ranks. And as they do that, the gap of what these guys can earn peacetime versus wartime is expanding. So at the beginning of the war, you had, again, people with maybe degrees or full-time jobs, and they were choosing the war for patriotism and different reasons like that, maybe benefits, whatever it might be. As you go further down that socioeconomic ladder, as Russia is, you're offering guys an opportunity at income that they've never seen in their life. So that is keeping a lot of these sections of the economy afloat right now. When the war goes away, that goes away, and they cannot pay those people the same thing to build air conditioners in Eastern Russia, whatever it might be. So it's getting harder for Putin to do that. I have a feeling that if he walked away right now, it has the likelihood of kind of pushing Russia into a significant economic depression for a long period of time. But I think technically they've got enough grip over the population that he could effectively declare victory, walk it back, and still retain power.
I suspect you're right.
For now. That might be the kind of thing that topples the government in 5 or 10 years, though.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a long-term risk with creating this many veterans, and especially with really no job opportunities, because even if this war ends, those sanctions aren't being lifted till Putin's dead, right? So I think you have, like you said, you have a long-term risk in the 5 to 10, but in the immediate, I don't know.
That's where China comes in, that's where China starts building factories and just taking advantage of what now has become Russian slave labor, because they can pay whatever they want because Russia has no choice. Like That's why I don't think China really cares how long this drags on. They're just going to increase their leverage over Russia.
That is fair. I think you're likely right on that regard. So we have this one from Shadows Do Not Flee. What's your view on the U.S. withdrawing troops from Romania recently? Is this the beginning of troop withdrawal from Europe as a whole, or a tactical shift?
I'd have to look up the details of that. My understanding is that was a planned rotation.
Yeah, I think so.
Let me look.
I believe it was a planned rotation, but I could be mistaken.
U.S. maintains a significant adjusted troop presence in Romania after a rotational brigade was redeployed in late 2025, reducing forces from around 3,000 to 1,000. Yeah, I'd have to dig into more details. So it sounds like we plussed up what were traditionally there, and then their rotation ended, and we went back to the normal amount. Personally, I'd like to see more U.S. forces in Europe. I think we need to, again, it goes back to the beginning of the conversation with the strength of NATO and what we can be doing there. I think now is a good time to rotate brigades through that theater and have them learn some new tactics from our Ukrainian partners that can step off the front for a little bit and pass along that knowledge and just kind of reinforce how to work side by side with our NATO allies. So I don't like less in Europe. I think right now is a good time to rotate more through. But in that particular case, it does look like it was kind of part of a planned rotation.
Yep, I think you are correct. So this one's come from Stephen Harper. I wonder if it's the former Prime Minister of Canada.
Probably.
But yeah, Stephen Harper, he says, how did Preston become a teen heartthrob?
Everyone wants to know. I'm still wondering. Yeah. My wife wants to know how that happened. Yeah.
I think it's like pretty funny because you are like a war and content creator, you know, or like a war and conflict creator. And I think it is like pretty funny to just say you're a teen heartthrob, right? Because I mean, I don't know. The idea that like people have posters of you on their wall is like the teen heartthrob. That's like a 1980s thing though, isn't it?
Right.
Like,
yeah. I do not get nearly as many like sugar mama DMs as I thought I would at this point in my content creator career. When you remove the bots and the clear spam, you know, it's something about that like 98.7% male audience on YouTube.
Well, that's because you're letting your wife run your inbox. She's deleting all the sugar mama requests.
Filtering stuff out.
Yeah. So I'm sure you have plenty. Because I think people look and they go, look at this refined gentleman.
Gotta be, yeah.
And you probably got a lot of, probably a lot of people.
Honeypots in there, I imagine, right?
A lot of honeypots. They're saying, what information do you know about the U.S. military? And they're all in, you know? So, well, folks, that concludes our show today. And so remember to like, comment, subscribe. Give us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. And become a member. A member because we're going to have our opening 5-minute chat. So if today was recorded, you would have heard the chili discussion about me complaining that my coffee was brewing and it smelled like chili. It really did. It to the point where it like disgusted me that I almost threw it out. But I was like, we're starting in like a minute. So
is there a chance there's like something wrong with you if you start like, you know, if you start smelling certain smells, it means that like you've got a major medical condition?
Maybe I'm pregnant. I don't know. But it's I don't know, man. It was just disturbing, and we're gonna look into it. We're gonna get to it in 2 weeks. And anyways, folks, but if you become a member, you can see that and so much more. Hopefully, we will have a theme song. Girls Just Want to Have Fun went out, and I do think it's like a little funny to refer to our audience as the girls or ourselves as the girls are back. You know, I think that's hilarious. So especially if you look at our demographic section, it really is just the boys, but in many ways we are the girls, right? So anyways, people, we will see you next week.